Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Jupiter, sextile, or trine one's natal moon. Now, this transit could manifest in optimism, enthusiasm, truth, veracity, joviality, luck. This could be in harmony with your emotional needs, and I'm going to elaborate and expound on that. This is a time where you may be more optimistic in attaining what your emotional needs are, more enthusiasm and exuberance for them. If the moon, say, is in Aquarius, it could be emotional needs may be tied into astrology or astronomy or computers, electronics, even innovating as some examples. And it could be also a time where you're more, as far as your unconscious side coming out. It could be a positive time for that. Um, you know, the sun, of course, more is the conscious. The moon is the unconscious side, and this is a time where you have. It could be just more positive and more fortuitous in general in those unconscious little qualities that may be expressed, like say if the moon is in Gemini, like in my case, I have my moon in Gemini. It could be something connected with the loquacious side, the vivacious energy, versatility that's tied in to the unconscious expression of the sign dexterity. Those could be things that could be to one's benefit in that example. Um, and it's something too where the emotions are, it's a time where you're just feeling, it's a time to be very jovial, where you're feeling jovial, um, but not to where it's like, you're over optimistic or over enthusiastic about things. It's just a general good, I would say, more of a happier, time period when you have this transit. You might feel more like doing Jupiterian things such as sports, religion, philosophy. It could be traveling abroad or publishing as some examples. And it's a time where your emotions you express generally, I would say, would be more positive at this time. More so than usual. The emotions are going to be more jovial, just less likely to be inclined toward despondency or feeling melancholy. It's a time where you likely feel, just more positive and upbeat in general. And it's also a time where it could be very auspicious in terms of responding and reacting to things. It's a time where your reactions, you know, whether it's you're responding to some job offer or opportunity, or it's a request for assistance, where these responses, this is a time where it can go more positive for you, more so than many other transits. And it's a time as well when you have this transit, keep in mind, I mean, anatomically speaking, okay, the moon is connected with the chest, the breast, the stomach, ribs, and water retention. It's also the left or the right eye, depending on gender. And it's a time where it could be more propitious to doing things that are, if you have any issues with these things that I described that are anatomically connected with the moon, if there's something that needs to be examined or looked at, or you may be waiting on some results, if there's some MRI, it's a time where it could be more positive at the very least in getting the information. I don't think I wouldn't say it guarantees positive results, but it's a time where you can at least be able to get down to the truth of these matters at this time, more so than you ordinarily would. And it's really a time too where it's more, we're going to feel more like doing things, let's say with Jupiterian people, whether it's in-laws or whether it's publishers or people at a religious congregation, or it could be someone at a college professor, someone at a college university. This is a time where you'd be more up to feeling like doing these things more so than usual. It could also be a time for prosperity in dealing, with the public. If you're somebody that's, whether if someone's like a door-to-door salesman, or you're selling cars, or even if you're just, simply in a retail business and you're in a, you're, an associate there, or you're a manager, it's a time where it could be more, beneficial to actually getting more business and revenue generated at this time, more so than usual. Um, it could also be a time period for you when you have this transit. It's also very positive, for doing things, connected with the mother, or the home, or the family. You're going to feel more enthusiastic, more exuberant regarding these matters. Um, it could be a time, if you're involved in, like real estate, or you're trying to sell a home, it could be a prosperous time in doing so. It could also be very fortuitous for people if you're doing things that are associated again with people prominent in your home, or your family, or people that you're simply close to home with at this time. It's a time as well where when you have this transit, it can be a time where you're very up, and it's time to express, where you could express more humor, being more jocular, more jovial. Could be even with people that were from your past. At this time, it's also a time where you may be more inclined to look back and reflect on more positive memories. It could be memories that were associated with sports activity. And most of you, I don't think, if even anybody out there that sees this video is involved in professional sports, but I'm sure there's going to be some people that see this that were involved in sports, like on a recreational level. It could have been, grade school, high school, middle school, or even after that, just with friends, or on some recreational league, community league or something. And it can be a time where you may be reflecting on those moments if you were involved in any kind of sports, or it could be, positive memories connected with a religious congregation, or college, university, or just things that were published. And it's a time where it could also be auspicious for publishing things. Speaking of publishing things that were associated, could be with your past, or your home, or your family, at this point in time when you have this transit. Now, um, it's also a time where it's positive, I would say, in the sense as far as sensitivity goes. And again, I'm going to elaborate and expound on that. It's a time where you're less likely to become oversensitive over, somebody just being jocular or joking, or misconstruing something like that, for a derogatory remark or insult. It's a time where you can understand people are joking with you at this time. And if you might have, even if you have a very sensitive chart, let's say if you're a water dominant chart, even in that instance, it would be more of a time for you to be able to laugh, when people are joking, when they're being jocular, just being friendly, and they're not necessarily saying anything to cause, likely not saying much to cause any kind of negative response from you. And it's also a time too where when you have this transit, it's also a time which could be very positive, and just for nurturing. It could give you the right amount of enthusiasm and exuberance to just taking care, to be nurtured, and to nurture. That's what the moon can reflect. Again, going back to the moon in Gemini as an example, people that have this placement, like myself, may feel nurtured, through mental stimulation, through the assimilation of information, as some examples. And it could be an auspicious time for this. Now, another way this transit could manifest, it could be about having the enthusiasm, which is Jupiter, just for your emotional needs in general, which is the moon. Let's say, for example, if the natal moon is in Pisces, it could be things that are associated with the metaphysical, which includes astrology or fishing or dancing, photography, or chemistry, as some examples. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, I know that's my signature statement. But now it's also a positive time for getting the truth, which is Jupiter, about your unconscious side, which is the moon. Now, let's say going back to the moon in Gemini as an example, it could be a very, sometimes even vicarious, versatile, loquacious qualities. As some examples, it could be the good and bad characteristics of the moon placement, but just being able to see the truth clearly in this and understand that. Now, let's say, another way this transit could be expressed, it could be easily expressing humor, which is Jupiter. Could be with the mother and the family, people you're close to home with, which is the moon. Now, let's say, for example, if the transit Jupiter is in Scorpio, it could be, it could be provocative or even sexual, humor. It might be also a time, well, not might be, could be, well, could be, maybe could be a time, I could say that again. Could be a time where it could be prosperous, which is Jupiter, in doing what you feel, what you feel like is connected with the moon. If the natal moon is in the zodiac sign Cancer, as an example, it could be something with history or home renovation, remodeling, roofing, real estate, plumbing. It could be working in some laundry business, some examples. And it's also a time where sports, which is Jupiter, could be what you really feel at home with. Say if the transit Jupiter is in Libra as an example, it could be doing something with tennis or gymnastics. As some examples, those are sports associated with balancing. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.